I think just in general, if you're a Tesla shareholder, I don't think you're investing in Tesla at this point for the vehicle business. I think you're betting that
Agreed.
FSD, Cybercab, Optimus will be transformational technologies that are underappreciated today, which potentially sets up obviously for massive investor returns in the future. And
100%.
Tesla, has really always been a story stock, and the story right now is robotaxis and humanoid robots. So
Yeah.
you're either bought in or you're not. So you make that decision.
Welcome to the Gigacast. My name is Gav, here today with Omar, Sawyer, and Farzad, and we are going to be covering the entire earnings and company update call that just happened with Tesla and Elon Musk yesterday. Before we get started, 73% of you love watching our videos but are not subscribed yet. Go ahead and smash that subscribe button for a cookie or the follow button if you are on X, and we will go ahead and get rolling. Let's talk about earnings. Farzad, welcome back. Good to have you this week. Let's talk about it.
So much energy. I had a coffee and I feel like I have a double shot of espresso in my veins because of Gav's crazy energy here right now. Yeah, I mean, the earnings report, I think from a numbers perspective, the actual earnings came in as expected, actually lower than expected from the consensus. I believe it was 27 cents adjusted earnings per share, which was on the lower end. So from a numbers perspective, was not great. I think what's interesting though about the earnings themselves, the actual numbers, is that this was a pretty bad quarter from a delivery perspective, but Tesla still added to its cash pile, even through its, the changeover of the Model Y, ramping Cybertruck, developing Cybercab, and all the other things they got going on with Megapack, ramping that stuff. They still added cash to the business. So I think that's a pretty impressive feat. However, the income and the earnings have come down quite a bit from the previous quarters. But I think that the much bigger side of the story, there's really two things going on, was the earnings call itself would have what we posited at the beginning when we did our live stream yesterday was that the call was going to drive most of the price action. But what ended up happening was macro ended up driving most of the price action with some of the verbiage from Trump around Chinese tariffs and easing up, et cetera, et cetera. However, I do think on the call, two big things happened from my perspective. I think Elon sort of reaffirming that he was going to step back from Doge once his time is sort of that's 132 days of working as a government employee or whatever that limitation was, that was indeed coming up in May, and that he reaffirmed the Tesla investors that he was going to step back from Doge, not completely step away, but dramatically reduce his time with Doge and serve more as a advisor or some sort of consultancy role with the president, as long as Trump would have him, was sort of his message. So that was one big thing, and investors seem to really like that because the stock did a quick fall when Elon was saying, hey, all these protests and stuff are causing some issues in some areas, but then, and I'm never going to stop working with Doge. Oh, but by the way, I'm going to step back and focus more on Tesla. So we saw that happen live with the stock. And then the other one was reaffirming the timelines for Robotaxi in June, specifically. It seems like Wall Street took kindly to that. I didn't really think that I think if they were going to delay FSD and the rollout of Robotaxi, that probably would have had a pretty severe negative move in the stock, to be honest, especially for the rest of the year with all this volatility. But they reaffirmed that guidance. There's still a lot of gray and blurriness around what this cheaper model is going to be. I don't know if y'all have any thoughts on this, but I still feel like Tesla's being very coy and very sort of like non-committal, probably on purpose. I mean, definitely on purpose on what this cheaper model is going to be. I think it's pointing more and more, in my opinion, towards a lower trim Model 3 or Model Y like car, just so they can leverage their existing lines as they've guided. So, but I do think over the long term, if you think of Tesla as a robotics company, I think you're probably happy about the call. Elon's getting re-engaged after Doge. Robotaxi is going live in June. They just put up a video a few minutes ago. I'm sure we'll bring that up about Tesla announcing that they've been doing FSD supervised rides as a rideshare service for a few employees in San Francisco and Austin, and that has launched, and they've done 1.5 or 1,500 trips already. So that's pretty cool. So if you're viewing it from a AI autonomy perspective, I think you're probably happy, but based on the company's guidance, they're probably not going to see any meaningful addition to the earnings report, so the financials, until the middle of next year, in 2026. It's probably a waiting game. However, if some of these profits start hitting the bottom line earlier, like let's say later this year, and the expansion goes very smoothly for robotaxi, then maybe the market responds accordingly. Plus, macro is going to have a much bigger impact, right? If interest rates go down, then that's a whole different story. So anyway, those were my high level takeaways.
A lot off the bat. Sawyer?
Yeah, no, I think Farzad covered it well. I think just my general thoughts, I think for the most part, investors heard what they wanted to hear. Q1 earnings themselves, the numbers themselves weren't very good. Actually, they're probably the worst in many years. But I think Elon did what I thought he would, which is steer everybody's attention towards FSD, Optimus, robotaxis, and stuff. He did give some people reassurance that his Doge participation will reduce significantly starting next month. And we all kind of knew that just because we knew his 130-day limit would be up by the end of May. But nonetheless, it's good to hear it, directly from him. And Farzad, I think you're right. There's still a lot of confusion about what these more affordable models are going to be. Tesla is purposely being vague about what these things are. Lars did sort of mention that they would resemble the shape and form factor of their current lineup, which leads me to believe that maybe it is just a stripped down Model 3 and Y. But then there's this other part in their slide deck that says they're going to utilize the more affordable models will utilize aspects of the next generation platform. So that leads you to believe it won't be stripped down 3Y. So obviously, if they're not ready to be on sale yet, they're not going to come out and say, hey, look, we have these new models coming in 2, 3, 4 months, whatever it is. Tesla can't afford to lose demand right now. Demand is already lower than it should be because of multiple factors, including, the Elon's Doge participation, the political involvement stuff, the Model Y changeover, obviously in Q1. But they don't want to come out and say, hey, we've got these more affordable models coming, but they're not ready yet. I think they're going to wait until right before they're ready to unveil them. I think they've learned from their mistakes of the past where they unveil these things years in advance, and it almost never helps them. Yes, they get orders and they got a lot of great free press, but ultimately, often what happens is they end up introducing them at a different price than they said they would, which just leads to disappointment on the customer's part. So that's not good. Other things, I think this year is likely going to be tough for Tesla. I don't think it's going to be a growth year. I think deliveries are likely going to be down versus 2024. I think revenue and profits will likely be down as well. And if you're a short-term investor, that probably worries you. But I think if you're a long-term investor, you probably walk away from this call pretty happy with what you heard. We didn't get a lot of new tidbits on stuff, but I think, as I said, Elon was going to steer everybody towards FSD. Elon did mention they have a huge fleet of Model Ys doing lots of circuits and around Austin, Texas right now, doing quality assurance for their June robotaxi launch. So that tells me that they're doing everything they can to make sure they meet this really important deadline. And it sounds like they're gonna make it happen. So I think that's what most long-term investors should be and are focusing on. And I think that's why the stock is up. I think Elon's and the team's bullishness on FSD, obviously the Cybercab, which sounds like they're going to start QA builds of that end of this quarter, which is good. And then prototype builds by the middle of the summer. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see full-on start of production of that thing by the end of this year rather than early 2026, what originally Tesla said. So we'll see. I thought it was an okay call. It was a long one, an hour and a half. But yeah, going to be interesting the next couple months.
Omar, I saw you posting several memes throughout. Seemed like you were having vivid reactions, and then you were up tweeting till 4 a.m. So I'm pretty interested to hear what you think.
I mean, it was a really interesting earnings call. The financial performance of the company was obviously not very good. But I think when you have the Model Y ramp, and they said we're not only ramping for the new Model Y, but this new, more affordable model, that explains a lot of what was going on during the quarter. So when we look to Q2, Q3, hopefully we see a little bit of an improvement there. And I think the stock, just imagine being a Tesla bear. It must be tough for these guys. You got a quarter where earnings are down 71%. Results are absolutely abysmal, a miss across the board. And this thing is still up 10% after hours. I think it just got cut so far during the quarter. Wall Street's always looking ahead. They saw early on in the quarter through the sales data that this quarter was eventually going to happen. That was being priced in throughout the whole quarter. By the time the results had actually come in, everybody knew it was going to happen. They were priced in, and then you had kind of a relief rally as we came out of that. So, it's concerning as an investor. I think we want to see them sell a lot of cars. And they mentioned not only the supply side issue, but they actually called out demand issues for the first time. They talked about political pushback. They talked about vandalism during the call, which was really interesting and, kind of concerning. I think I kind of wondered if maybe they're seeing something in the data that is causing them to have to warn about this. So it's going to be really interesting to see the Q2 production and deliveries print and see how that really impacts things. But the key takeaways are if they can actually launch their rideshare service in Austin, that is really the number one focus for the company. And the fact that, they published this video this morning, you can see some of that UI they've built out for their rideshare service, that they're already testing this with humans behind the wheel, but that you can see the app, you can see the UI on the back seat screen that you can use. And this thing is actually running. They're gathering data. They're seeing how many interventions are needed in the real world. I mean, this is meaningful progress. So I was a little disappointed we didn't get more about the more affordable vehicles. I would think, okay, well, we're so close to the start of production, they got to give us something. But we did find out that they said, well, these are going to be built on the Model Y line, so we can't make something that looks radically different than the Model Y. So we'll see. Maybe it's something that looks exactly like the Model Y. Maybe it's something a little bigger, a little smaller. I had heard some rumors that they were going to do a slightly longer Model Y or a slightly shorter Model Y or something. So we'll see what exactly they have there. I think also, as Sawyer mentioned, the fact that they're using elements of the next gen platform, again, that's kind of vague, but it's interesting. It suggests that maybe there's more to it than just simply removing parts. I think they're really taking some of the Cybercab parts and putting in this new, more affordable vehicle. But yeah, I think, if this company is not able to grow sales this year, something is seriously wrong. And they really need to, I think, take a hard look at everything from top to bottom in sales and marketing. You've got just a phenomenal product. You've got FSD now in the US and China. They absolutely should be able to grow sales with these products that they have this year.
I agree, and I thought the first question that analysts put out there, I think it was Pierre that asked this question, is like, hey, like if you're in a Tesla, you can see how clearly superior of a product you have versus everyone else, to your point, Omar, especially gas cars, right? And sort of the point was, you still have people buying Ford Fiestas and Ford Focuses or whatever's out there now, like your Chevy Malibus and your whatever, your RAV4s. The Model Y and the Model 3, if you really look at it from a cost to cost perspective, the 3 and the Y are just as competitive, if not more so, over the life of the vehicle than any of those features. Why isn't the Model 3 and Y growing into that, right? And that was the question. It's like, hey, like what? And then Elon said, in the future, nobody will buy cars.
I didn't like that response. Yeah.
Yeah. That was like and I get it. It's like, this is an Elon sort of like looking in the future and thinking, yo, eventually we're not going to worry about this now. We'll get there eventually. So this could be like the forcing function that to the company that says, stop worrying about trying to defeat the competition on a like-to-like basis. Just get autonomy done. Just get it done so we can wipe the floor with everybody and nobody will ever have to ask this question, because our cost per mile is just going to be cheaper than everybody. Nobody has to worry about car ownership. But that's dependent on regulation, right? That's a multi-year process across multiple countries, across multiple continents that will take some time. So I agree. I didn't like that answer either. And I think the overarching premise here for me, for the companies, I do think these cheaper vehicles are stripped down 3s and Ys. Nothing else makes sense to me, again, because we haven't really seen any mules driving around for these cars to be ready to be sold starting in a couple months, July at the latest, right? So
it's possible that it was too difficult to reduce the cost enough with just stripping down alone, that maybe the part where they talk about they're utilizing aspects of the next generation version, maybe it's like 48 volt, probably not. but something along those lines where it helps them bring down the cost enough that even though the form is the same, it'll still be a more affordable model. I think just in general, if you're a Tesla shareholder, I don't think you're investing in Tesla at this point for the vehicle business. I think you're betting that
Agreed.
FSD, Cybercab, Optimus will be transformational technologies that are underappreciated today, which potentially sets up obviously for massive investor returns in the future. And
100%.
Tesla, has really always been a story stock, and the story right now is robotaxis and humanoid robots. So you're either bought in or you're not. So you make that decision.
And I think from that perspective too is like, what's the overarching goal here? Is to just get as many cars on the road as possible. Like, who cares about the form factor? Just get the cars on the road. Let's do whatever we need to do. It's clear that Tesla has a production capacity that they need to fill out. It's nowhere near peak. I think they have 3 million unit car capacity across all their factories. They're nowhere near it. So they're going to try to maximize the throughput of that through those existing factories by whatever they need to do. Get as many units in the countries, and then the Cybercab process, the full-on unboxed revolutionary process that Elon's talking about, that's the next wave of vehicles coming down the pike, and those cars are going to be optimized for the 1 to 2 person, point A to point B, 90% plus of miles traveled in the United States and globally. Then that becomes the next growth wave. I mean, that's it. And then the bot will, like Sawyer said, will work on the FSD thing. It's just a waiting game. It's like that's the uncomfortable part of Tesla right now. Is like you just got to wait for them to actually do it. We've been waiting.
I mean, I think the interesting thing here is we're really looking at the end of the first master plan, right? When Tesla came onto the market, it was start with an expensive car, use that money to make a more affordable car, use that money to make a more affordable car. And there was the Roadster, the S and X, the 3 and Y. For a few years now, we've been waiting for, well, what's that next step after the Model 3 and Y? Where's that smaller car? Maybe it's a compact that's going to hit the $25,000 price point they talked about at Battery Day. And I think Elon made a strategic decision to say, this is the end. There is no next step after Model Y. For now, we're going to, have a more affordable version that we're going to do, but build it on the same line so we can ramp up faster, get it to market faster, have less CapEx to get that additional volume. And the next step after Model Y is really the Cybercab. That really is the future of the company. So that, I think, is a strategy they haven't really articulated fully to investors. I think it's a strategy that makes a lot of people nervous because they look at the Cybercab and they say, well, is the world ready for that? How many of these can you really sell? Is autonomy going to work?
Yeah.
But yeah, they've put all their bets here.
Yeah.
What do you guys think the total? How many Cybercabs realistically do you think they can sell? Because I think in the U.S. there's 15 to 16 million cars sold in the U.S. per year. How many Cybercabs do you think is realistic that they could sell
today?
In the US?
0.
Yeah, just in the U.S. because I don't know what the market is.
A car like that
0.
to anybody.
0 right now.
Okay, so let's say that's interesting. So the revenue just comes from all the rides that they're doing from the fleet that Tesla owns.
Why do you think I've been
to.
on this steering wheel and pedal kick for the longest time? What do you think?
Dude, people don't want a 2-door.
But if it's so then what are all those castings for? What are all those castings for that they put out for investors to see?
For the non-steering wheel version.
Okay. Where are those cars going to go? Who's going to realistically operate those in the next 6 to 12 months and where?
FSD.
I think they're just testing out the stamping, working out the bugs.
That's the thing is, I thought we were going to get answers, and I came out even more confused about their strategy. So, Cybercab's the next thing. It's not really there from a regulatory perspective to be able to sell it yet. Then they've got this new, more affordable vehicle. It's going to look like a Model Y quite a bit because it's built on the same line. So how much cheaper are we talking here? And how did they really achieve that? I'm scratching my head, honestly, and I'm waiting until later this quarter when we get more details about this new vehicle.
I mean, I will say that sorry, if I could just throw this out there. I will say on the earnings report, it doesn't make sense for them to do a product unveil for a model. Let's say it is a stripped down 3 and Y or a cheaper 3 and Y. Doesn't make any sense for them to announce it on the earnings call because that's going to immediately eat into their capacity for Y and 3 now if they're not ready to ship that product, right? So it's a maximum Osborne effect. It's like, well, the launch edition Y that Sawyer has, right? That just went into the all-wheel drive non-launch edition one, and then you're going to tell people, oh, there's an even a cheaper version. We're not going to call it the Model Y. We're going to call it the Model, I don't know, 12. I just make up a name, but it's going to obviously be 89, 90% Model Y, and then you put that out there, right? And then if you're not going to be ready to ship it in the next couple months, you're going to hurt yourself for the second quarter. And then the other thing they mentioned on the call, which I forgot to bring up, is Lars also said that the ramp will go slower than they like. That's another thing too. He said like the ramp is going to go slower than they like. There's no limiting factor to get these cars out there starting in June, July, but the ramp's going to go slower than we like, right? And so a ramp that's going to go slower than they like for a cheaper vehicle seems like a bad place to be in because a lot of your demand is going to flow to the bottom margin product, which is going to eat up your higher margin product. So and I think all of that's because of tariffs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all of this is because of tariffs. And you could hear Elon's frustration on the call about this whole tariff situation. You know, I really think that Elon feels like his back is against the wall with the Trump administration a little bit because, you know, Trump's going to do what he thinks is best for the country. But then one of the downstream effects, which is hilarious to think about because this is how Elon operates his business, is that Elon creates forcing functions for the optimal solution to happen. And Trump has an idea that says tariffs is going to create the optimal solution. Well, guess who now has to fight through that decision? Elon, right? And you could hear him on the call being frustrated about it. And so I think that's another variable too we have to think through here is that the Trump administration, this is part of the chaos of the tariff negotiation, is that companies like Tesla are going to be heavily disrupted because they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. Now, could that generate a positive outcome in the near future? Of course. It maybe creates a massive forcing function. We decouple from China, stuff comes to the United States, whatever, right? So it's just, I think that it might just be that no one knows what the hell is happening. That
it's really hard for a company to plan in this environment. Like, let's say Tesla had plans to source certain parts from, like, let's say China or whatever. Well, now they can't do that because of these massive tariffs. And they don't know what the future, they don't know if it's going to go back to 0 tariffs or 20, whatever it is. So it's like all these, what do? You just kind of wait and see what happens and you delay products. That's not ideal.
Yeah. But I don't want, sorry, Gav, I don't want this to be a scapegoat on Trump either. I think this is also like a, hey, if this was a strategic decision and the idea was to get Cybercab going faster and you're not being clear about the lower trims, that's also a problem. It's just now all of that is compounding onto one giant thing and we all have to just sift through the craziness. Now, if we get through it without a market crash and without the economy collapsing, we're going to have an extremely strong foundation for the next 5 to 10 years. But we're just sifting through right now. That's what we see in the markets. It's just insane uncertainty.
It does seem like the slowdown in the ramp up is due to tariffs. I think they'll be able to start production, but maybe not get the quantity of parts that they wanted as quickly, which is a little bit disappointing. And, you know, I mean, I think cannibalization is a little bit of a concern. So you've just got this new Model Y. I think that alone is going to drive sales growth for the year. But if you've got a much cheaper version, well, you know, what is the differentiation between this new, more affordable vehicle and the Model Y if it's substantially similar? If you're so scared to talk about it because you're worried about cannibalization, well, what happens when you actually unveil it? Is it just going to be like the base Cybertruck where it's just so bad and missing so many features that you hope people are going to pick the higher version? Because that may work to some extent for some people, but really a lot of people are going to pick the low-end version of the product and you're just going to kind of dilute your product experience. So I think it's a risky strategy. Lowering price in the past didn't necessarily help them gain substantial new volumes. So I'm not sure I understand fully why this really makes sense for them to do yet. I think there's some missing pieces that we don't quite grasp yet, but there must be a reason why they think that this is important.
Yeah, and I want to dig a little bit further into that and also hit on the Optimus side of things because there was a lot of coverage on that. And there was also on the FSD side of things, a video that Tesla put out. Real quick, before we do get into that, something that you said, Omar, stood out to me, which was, you know, these cars are amazing, right? They have FSD, they have so much going on. It is even though it's not a car business, it's worrisome to see, right, such a substantial decrease in revenue coming from that side of things. But not only are these cars awesome, but you know what makes them more awesome? Jowua. When you can take something amazing and you can add it in to your Tesla and take it from just a Tesla to that next level. Omar, I know you've been in there gaming. I know you've been using those tissue boxes that Sawyer pointed out. Let's pull it up real quick. If people aren't familiar, our amazing sponsor, Jowua, makes the best accessories for Teslas, and they're also giving our listeners an amazing discount. You can see it's built in right there. Save $70, $80, $100 on your bundles. The link is right below the video. If you're on YouTube or on X, it is right below. Click right in there. Use code Gigacast if you're not coming through our link. If you are, it'll already be put on there. I want to hear real quick, Omar, favorite product you've been using recently from Jowua? He's muted.
You're muted, bro. Come on, get your sales tactics up. Jeez.
Yeah, I mean, recently I took a road trip, so I was actually using this Starlink cable. This plugs into the back of your Starlink Mini, and then you can plug it into the USB-C in the car, which is pretty cool. Joe also has this mobile connector. You know, now that NACS is standardized, you can get this Jowua mobile connector. It's super durable. So if you need to charge up your car, it's always good to keep a mobile connector in the trunk for emergencies. So if you need another one, I think it's actually a little bit cheaper than Tesla's.
There you go. A nice way to save. I know some of the best sellers on there, the gaming consoles. And then, by the way, the number one thing that people bought from the last video was something that you talked about, Sawyer. So I just want to hit on that, and then we'll jump back into the conversation. And that was kind of that hidden fold away piece, which goes underneath the screen, right?
Yeah, the storage compartment. Yeah, Teslas don't have a sunglasses holder, so there's really no easy, good place to put them. So this little fold away or hidden storage drawer that goes right under the screen. You don't even see it. You just see the little tab, and you just pull down, and boom, there's a whole drawer for you. Super simple to just throw stuff in.
Yeah, this was the number one thing that people were buying. Long story short, if you love your Tesla, you probably like spending time in your Tesla, and you already enjoyed the experience, but your experience right now is an A. If you want to make it an A+, you're going to add in some Jowua accessories, and you're just going to take it to the next level, and then you're going to love your Tesla, not just with your whole heart, with your heart and your wallet, right? And that's what matters. With that being said, let's jump back into it. Let's talk a little bit of Optimus, and then we can watch that video as well if we want, but Optimus is coming. Millions of Optimuses, something along those lines. Sawyer, what are we thinking when we hear Elon talk about this on the call?
I mean, we didn't get much new. He did give numbers that maybe they do like 1,000 or 2,000 by the end of this year, and some of those would be in the factories doing some factory level work. And then I think he said 1 million by 2030. I can't remember if that was lower than the number he said last earnings call. You guys remember what he said for 2030?
I don't know if he said 500. He said 10x every year starting in 2026. Technically, okay. Yeah, it would be significantly lower. Because if you extrapolate out that number, it would have been like 50 million by 2031 or something.
All right, well, these are Elon timelines, so we'll take it with a grain of salt. But we did get an image of the pilot line, the pilot production line for Optimus at their Fremont factory. I think that was the first time we've seen that, I believe. I was told that the shoulders and the stuff will actually look a little bit different than what's shown in this for the final production version, for the mass production, than what's shown in this image. So keep that in mind. But nonetheless, it looks like a really manual process as of right now. But I'm sure it'll be more automated as time goes on.
Why did they take the light strip off the head? I like that part.
I think it's still there. It's just hidden by the darkness of the lighting.
Yeah. Evan, if you can actually pull that picture back up, because we were actually nerding out on this on our stream yesterday of the Optimus. Yeah, so the shoulders, like Sawyer said, they're going to be different. This is the Optimus Gen 3. It looks like this is the third generation of Optimus. This is going to be. It looks like something very close to this is going to be the one they're going to have 5,000 of, or whatever that number is this year. There's also an Optimus laying down. I don't know if you can see that on the upper right hand. Part of the, like, you see that the legs right there, look at him, he's like chilling over there, he's taking a nap. And then if you go to the production line, so back where the people are working, there's two sides. There's one on the left and there's another one on the right as well. You can see there are people working on the other side. You're right there, you see that? So there's people working on one side. You can see the red rails at the bottom there, where you
can see the red ring light on the head of the one in the back too.
Yeah. Yeah, right there. You see that right there. So there's some Easter eggs in here, which I think a lot of people are going to dig through and find stuff for us to look at. The sort of the collarbone area looks different. This area right here looks different. The arm, the hand rather, if you go down, you see all those like wire things. Those are probably going to be for the quote unquote tendons for the 21, 22 degrees of freedom of the hand. So that whole thing looks completely different. There's definitely a lot of changes they've made to this. I do think, though, as it pertains to Tesla and this being a product line, this is probably a year or two away from sales to business customers. And I don't foresee this in the home. The more I think about it, I don't foresee this product in the home until like 2030 or later. Just because the safety implications as it pertains to a human or robot in the home are so, the last thing you want is for Optimus robot to fall on something that you love or someone that you love and cause severe pain or worse. Like that is a disastrous headline waiting to be written, right?
I feel like having a kid gave you perspective here.
Huge, right? But I think on the flip side, though, when it comes to business customers, your ability to sell into business customers is significantly easier than launching a self-driving network. Because at businesses, you're not going to deal with the same amount of regulation as putting stuff on the road with a self-driving car. And then you can create a lot of separation between man and machine in a business setting. And you can have very clear delineations and go through OSHA requirements and stuff. OSHA is like the safety regulations for workplaces. It's going to be a lot easier for Tesla to sell these to business customers, so B2B, before B2C. And the B2B part of the business for Optimus is still going to be in the millions of units per year. Because, we think about the economy. What is the economy? It's just human labor. How many jobs are there? There's like hundreds of millions, billions globally, right? So the TAM for this product, even not being in the home, is gigantic, is unbelievable. And I think that's the very exciting part, is that starting in 2026, probably 2027 more likely, I think we'll start seeing those sales. But before that, we should start seeing a bottom line impact to Tesla when they start using those bots internally, because it's going to help them theoretically with costs, right? It's going to make stuff more efficient. You're going to pull out human labor, do robotic labor, et cetera, et cetera.
Makes sense. Any other thoughts on Optimus?
Yeah, I mean, I thought this was really cool to see the California factory line. So they've been working on Optimus for many years. The fact that they're actually starting to produce hundreds and thousands of these is pretty cool. They're going to learn a tremendous amount, right? Elon always says, prototypes are easy, production is hard. Well, now they're getting into the hard part, actually figuring out how to manufacture these, make all the actuators. I mean, they even said there was some impact from tariffs. They weren't able to make the right arm. These are the things you learn to do when you actually start production. At the same time, I do have to wonder, what do they actually need thousands of Optimus for? I mean, they say they're going to put them to internal use working in the factory. I imagine they have some jobs kind of laid out for them in terms of what they're going to do. But is the software there? Is it ready for these robots to actually be useful at a scale of thousands? Or are they just going to be kind of sitting there in some warehouse? I don't know. They haven't really shown us a lot on the software piece to, kind of give us an idea of what these robots are going to do, but they must have some plan for how they're going to use them internally. So I'm excited to hear more about that.
Yeah, I would not underestimate the amount of pick thing up, put thing down type of tasks that exist in a company like Tesla, just from not even from a factory perspective, but warehousing, service. It's like so many jobs are just like, let me move this thing from here to there. I also feel like if Tesla's trying to be revolutionary with this unbox process, I'm going to guess that they thought about Optimus being part of the unbox process so that it can be helpful immediately. And maybe they're thinking about the low-hanging fruit type of tasks that they can teach Optimus where it can be maximally helpful with the unboxed line. That's got to be part of the equation. And if that's the case, boy, do you have, and again, this goes back to Elon talking about the factory is the product. The factory is the product. Okay, cool. Maybe you start selling people a way to make a car and it comes with a bunch of Optimus and then the Optimus, the machinery, and whatever you need, that's the product. Here you go. Here's the building, and then you just push the material through it, and then it will just come out on the other side, right? So, yeah, I'm fascinated by Tesla's progress on bot, but again, I go back to the guidance from the company. Unlikely for bot to be a material part of the financials until 2027 or later.
Yeah. Sir, what was your biggest concern coming out of the call?
I think strategically, one thing I disagree with Elon, and we don't know for sure if he ended up canceling the more affordable model that was going to be built on the Cybercab platform. But if that's true, that's something I disagree with Elon on. I think even though Cybercab rolls out next year, it's still going to be a couple years before it really starts materially impacting the business, I think. And it takes a while to ramp up production of Cybercab. I know it uses the next generation process and stuff, but you never know what could pop up. So I think having maybe smaller models in between until then, that fully driverless, steering wheelless future, having all those models for sale that have steering wheels for people just bolsters your cash position, makes you a stronger business, I think, in the meantime. And I think it would have been good for Tesla to expand its lineup of vehicles and models in the meantime. But I think Elon was just all in on autonomy and AI and robotaxis, that he was like, why bother if the future is fully driverless? So, yeah, I would have liked to hear more about Tesla's future vehicle lineup and the more affordable models, but I get why they're not talking about it. They don't want to risk Q2 sales.
Yeah, totally fair. I know that we've got to wrap up in a few. Do we want to watch that video from Tesla real quick that they put out? Evan, if you're able to share that, they posted a video. Here we go. Perfect.
Picking up Evan. That's nice. I like how the Robotaxi logo is the same as the Cybertruck. It's got the cyber look to it.
I don't like that, actually.
No? How come?
I think it's a little out there for a rideshare service, honestly.
I think it's cool.
Nice. It's coming.
Okay, here's it. Go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say the average trip looks like was 10 miles, which is actually a pretty long trip.
Yeah. Here's the interesting tidbit. Do you think Tesla, we clearly saw the supervisor driver in front of the wheel and pedal. Do you think this sets the stage for Tesla to come out with a proper rideshare service that doesn't necessarily use robotaxi, and they go head to head with Uber until all of their cars become autonomous? So it becomes like a thing. Is like, hey, if you can start driving for Tesla now. You can use your Tesla with unsupervised. Maybe we'll give you a bigger piece of the cut if you use FSD. And then once robotaxi is enabled in your vehicle, your earnings will stay the same or better. We'll just yank you out of the car, and you don't even have to drive anymore, right? I wonder if that's going to be a thing that they'll look into doing. But yeah, and it's exciting. It's very exciting. June, Austin, let's go.
Yeah, it's running through this year, and pretty cool to see them on pace with these things continuing to happen. I think that was probably the biggest positive for me that I saw coming away from the call, is that still being on time and coming up despite what happened with revenue, earnings, EPS, and other pieces like that. Really fun one. I think people are looking for more insights with earnings, so hopefully this was helpful. Just real quick, going to go around, do some closing comments. Before I do that, one more big thank you to Jowua, our amazing sponsor. Again, if you have a Tesla, it's worth at least going and taking a look at the site. Like Omar mentioned, some of their products are similar to what's sold on the Tesla site, but they sell them for even cheaper. They're high quality. They're made in not in China. I'll just put that out there with the tariffs right now, so I don't think you'll have to deal with that part of things. Very high quality products, and we love their team. They're like a huge part of the Tesla community on X, and they post a bunch, so it's very cool to see. So make sure you're going, again, to that link below, code Gigacast, or it's already built in. Save some money, support the pod. We love you all. With that being said, some closing comments here. Omar, anything else on your mind?
Yeah, that video is really what I wish we had seen before the earnings call. I mean, they say they're on track for FSD supervised. They say they're on track for these new, more affordable vehicle models, but they're not giving us a lot of details. What you saw in that video is how they're building confidence that they are actually ready to go unsupervised. I don't think they're necessarily going to do a supervised rideshare service. I mean, maybe they could. The car is doing everything in that video. The person is just there essentially for legal reasons and to take over if necessary. But they've designed this software so that the car, can handle the rideshare rides automatically, do pickups, drop-offs, and, maybe they can launch in more areas and have a human behind the driver's seat. I think they've done a lot of testing with employees. But if their testing with a human behind the wheel shows that they don't need any interventions, well, then it's ready to turn on in Austin.
100%. Farzad?
Yeah, I mean, it's an exciting time for autonomous vehicles. I think companies like Waymo and Uber are probably paying very close attention to what's about to happen in Austin. I think Austin is going to be a super cool place to come visit and check out as sort of Tesla's products start becoming really real in this area. It seems like they have a lot of great relationships with the local government, and it's going to allow them to achieve a lot of really cool stuff. So I think what's going to be interesting to see is Tesla's future and what Tesla's going to look like in the coming years. If you're in Austin, you're probably going to get a glimpse into what it's going to look like everywhere else. So I think that's a really cool thing about the region that I live out of. So I'm very excited for that. Outside of that, it's those freaking cheaper cars, man. We got 2 more months. What are they? What are they, Elon? If you're watching this, DM me. I won't tell anybody.
We need a betting market on that. I'd be curious to see where the money flows. What are they? Sawyer.
I think all signs point to Tesla meeting and hitting this June deadline, which is really exciting. More evidence today from the Tesla AI team. And I don't think people should make a big deal of Elon's or in the team's comments about remote operation in case the robotaxis get stuck. I think that's obvious that they would have that in place for safety reasons. But it's going to be an exciting few months, I think. I think Q2 is going to be rough from a numbers perspective, but I think the developments that happen in Q2 will be good for the long-term trajectory of the company. And I think that's what long-term investors should focus on.
Yeah, I like that you guys came at it from different perspectives. I feel like Farzad, Sawyer, you guys have a little bit less focus perhaps on those down revenue and earnings numbers than you did, Omar. But there's different perspectives across the board with areas that you guys are really leaning into, and obviously a lot of optimism if they can continue to hold the timelines this year and hopefully get some mysteries as to what are these vehicles solved as well. Question for you, Farzad, if they maybe they can release the Cybercab and it's with no wheel or pedals, but then Jowua can sell wheels and pedals that you can add to your Cybercab, and now you can convert it over, and now it's just like a huge upgrade. What do you think? Business idea?
Yeah, great. Good luck with regulations for that one.
Well, okay, we could try. I'm an idea man. I'm not the manufacturer.
I love it. Can I throw one more thing out there before we go?
Yes.
The tariff stuff with Trump is 90% of what's going to happen in the next 3 to 6 months. So nothing else matters until this whole tariff stuff is figured out.
Yeah, maybe we have to do another episode on tariffs and what did Elon get himself into. That's coming up next, perhaps. We'll see what happens in the next week. Thank you, everybody, as always, for watching and supporting the Gigacast. If you've not subscribed yet, smash that subscribe button for free Tesla love. I can't say free Tesla. We're not actually giving away a Tesla. Not yet, though. Maybe in the future. We'll see how this podcast goes. Ad revenue. Thank you. With that being said, appreciate you all for tuning in. Subscribe, follow on the channels, comment below. Give us some feedback. Maybe you don't like how close my head is to the camera. Maybe you don't like Farzad's table banging. Maybe you love both those things. Just let us know one way or the other. We appreciate all the comments that we get. Looking forward to talking to you all on the next one. Take care. Have a good one.